Well, I'm easy, easy like Sunday morning. I know it sounds funny, but I just can't stand the pain. Girl, I'm leaving you tomorrow. I guess nobody's gonna join me. Hey, there's some people. What's up, y'all? Hey, Western Australia, what's up? Western Australia. What time of day is it in Australia? What's up, Bones and Tubbs? Patter Hill, what's up? Crocky Bird. Hey, we got 19 people in the room. When am I coming back to Texas? Okay, so I need to find out for sure. I got a wedding to play this weekend, and I need to look at the schedule and see what Charm's got for me. You know, I'm about at the end of my time here in Oregon, and I will admit to kind of hoping that I could maybe work things out in my busted relationship, but that is not happening. So I'm definitely going back to Texas. And I'm not taking the camper van. It'll be me and my son in two cars. What's up, Ohio? What's up, Pennsylvania? What was my mud flood verdict? Well, I did a video on the mud flood. I don't know. It seems a little far-fetched that they can manipulate history that much. But at the same time, I think that the concept of the Earth, of the ground becoming, basically turning to mud from an earthquake, I think is probably a real thing. And I just don't know that the global reset happened so recently. I'm an Oregonian. You live in Astoria. Cool, that's where they filmed Goonies. A lot of people know that. A lot of people don't. What's up, Michigan? What's up, Pat? Illinois? Florida? Looks like East Coast is checking in. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like talking, and I never do this, so I thought I would just surprise everybody. I didn't advertise this or anything. I just jumped in here, you know. What's up, Burned Head? What's up, UK? Good to see y'all. Midwest, California. Awesome. Well, I'm just hanging out. I'm just at the end of my coffee time when I got to start making something happen for the day. And hey, I'm glad I got you on the lunch break there. That's cool. There's New York. What's up, Mountain Man? Mountain Man in New York. Maybe climbing them concrete mountains. You think you're being gang stalked because you saw a black car. I don't know. Hey, I have a black car. When I was young, I used to just pull over in neighborhoods to roll a joint. You never know. It's probably some teenager hiding from his girlfriend. Making some iced tea. There you go. Hey, Scotland checking in. What's up? I don't know. I don't have a, man, I got to figure out a way to hold this better. There we go. This is difficult because if I hold it on the other side, I need a selfie stick. That's what I need. Ah! It was an orange car. Orange cars are suspicious. I used to have an orange car. What are the herb laws in Texas? So, Dallas County just announced, the DA there, that they would not prosecute anybody who had small amounts of marijuana on them. And the police, the Dallas police and the county sheriff said they were still going to arrest people. And the DA said, arrest all you want. We'll just be turning them right back out again. So that's where we're at in Texas. It's still split about 50-50 on legalization. And, they can't seem to get it past the Christian conservatives. But Oklahoma's got medical, and it's pouring across the border like crazy. It's like, that's the thing I noticed when I went back there, is like everybody has Oklahoma medical weed now, I think. It kind of happened that way too, and when Colorado got legalization. So it's going to get legalized nationwide. The money's in it, you know. People want it. They're going to get what they want eventually. Okay, so what's up, Free Winds? Wait, what did the Oregon governor? It went too fast. I don't know how to work this stuff. Keep the jobs in America. All that money for weed was going down to Mexico and funding the cartels. Texas going blue. What are my thoughts on that? Well, there is a huge influx of people coming from California, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're Democrats. Like the hardcore leftists are not going, they're not moving to Texas. You know, the people that are moving to Texas are moderates, the, Republicans, and people that are fleeing California because of the California politics. Let's see here. Hasn't the drug cartel and America relate? Well, it depends on what you call America. You talking about the American people, or are you talking about the deep state? You must be in upstate New York. That's why there's you got some mountains up there. Yeah, some people are like that, Johnny. Some people can't smoke, use hemp or marijuana or cannabis in any way. It just messes with their head. Rain, rain, rain in Indiana. Well, that seems a little out of character. It never rains in Oregon this time of year. It's just always beautiful. Yeah, the rhinos and the Dems are corrupt. I watched a video today by Jamie Deluxe where he just basically read the Clinton body count. I was blown away. I was blown away. I mean, I knew about a lot of it, but, I didn't realize that there's been like 4 or 5 airplane crashes that just conveniently killed witnesses against the Clintons while they were on their way to testify. That's not suspicious. So I don't think you're talking. One guy was talking about Reagan's relationship with drugs and the cartel and all of that. But the thing is that I don't know how much Reagan knew about that. I mean, we're beginning to really understand under Trump that there's this shadow government that does what they want to do, and they don't have to cut the president in on the secrets. And they don't, unless they feel like the president's on their side. But if they feel like there's any opposition or he wouldn't approve, they just don't tell him. They're like a bunch of children doing stuff behind their daddy's back, and that's how the deep state's been working for so long. So I think a lot of that stuff, Bill Clinton knew a whole lot more about drugs coming into the United States through the government in the 80s than Reagan did, because Clinton was a governor. I mean, a huge section. Okay, this isn't suspicious. The 2 boys who are said to have witnessed drugs being taken off of an airplane in Mena, Arkansas, were found dead on a railroad track. One of them had his skull crushed before he was hit by the train. The other one was stabbed in the back, right? And it was deemed an accident or deemed a suicide. At one point, they said they smoked a bunch of weed and fell asleep on the railroad tracks. Well, that didn't explain the stab in the back and the crushed skull post death, or prior to the death, prior to the being hit by the train, rather. And that about 7 witnesses in that case all died of being gunned down in the street in random acts of violence. That's crazy. The district attorney, the lead investigator on the case, and all 5 or 6 witnesses were all murdered. There's got to be something to it. So yeah, I mean, drug dealing through the United States government is how they funded a lot of their black ops. Trump is in on it. I don't know. It remains to be seen whether Trump is in on it or not. I will say this: if Trump was in on it, why does everyone evil hate him so bad? Like, everyone wants him, like they just want rid of him. Like, he's the most hated president, I think, in history. Honestly, the hatred towards Trump it makes the hatred that the right had for Obama tiny compared to the hatred that is going on for Trump. So that tells me that all of the right people are his enemies. This is why I'm still backing Trump, even though I'm not, I mean, really, if you want to get down to it, he's not my kind of conservative in the fact that he doesn't doggedly protect the Second Amendment. I mean, he does, but then he gives up the bump stocks, which don't really bother me because that's a worthless device. But now he's going after the silencers potentially. So, but at the same time, he has all the right enemies. And so if the same people that want to destroy me want to destroy him, then we must have something in common, so maybe. Is President Trump is trolling the deep state on Iran? No, I think he's having a real crisis of conscience. And I was talking about this to my fam today. And, Trump, what they wanted Trump to do was, okay, they shot one of our drones down. And so that's an act of war. So we should destroy their nuclear power plants and their nuclear facilities that they know about. I don't know. That's kind of like you backing into my car in the driveway and then me following you home and burning your house down. Like that's not pro quo. That's not that quid pro quo. That's not equal. That's not a reasonable reaction. And I talked about what I thought somebody like Reagan would do in this situation. The standard operating procedure under Reagan was, if you shot down something or fired on one of our airplanes, or attacked somebody from a facility, rather than just declaring open war and going after the whole nation and going for a regime change or a massive carpet bombing or something, Reagan would just target the facility that sent the missile, or the airport that sent the airplane. And so, I think an appropriate response to Iran shooting down one of our drones, and they admit they did it. The conflict is where it happened, but I still think if I were president and I was going to do something, I would just target that SAM site. I would just get a handful of cruise missiles and hit that SAM site. That seems like an equal reaction, like what Reagan would do, but at the same time, Trump's got these generals in his ear saying this is our chance to go after the nuclear facilities. And I think Trump was going with the generals until he gave it some thought. He said today that 150 people he found out would probably die in the attack on that nuclear facility. And he couldn't justify killing 150 people over an $18 million airplane. So actually, to me, that sounds very much like a president who's trying to do the right thing. Shoot one of their drones? Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you hit me in the nose, and then I go get a gun and shoot you in the belly, that's overreaction, man. They're going to put me in prison. They're going to give me the death penalty, right? But if you hit me in it was 180, not 18 million, 180 million. Okay. But if you hit me in the nose and I hit you back in the nose, I mean, it's self-defense, right? That you can go too far with something. And so I think the generals were wanting him to be really crazy. Metal Sheep says, yes, that's a smart president. I agree. He's acting like a smart president. He showed him that he was angry and he was willing and, he was capable. But at the same time, he has prudence and, he's showing restraint. That's what I think of the Iran situation. Was it a false flag? Okay, so are we talking about the drone or the ships? Because the drone is, they admitted it. They shot the drone down. Nothing false flag about that. Now, that ship pulled up alongside there, that's questionable. I don't know that I trust that footage as being, factual evidence that Iran was responsible for that. So, to me, the main issue is over the drone. But I can't see how he does nothing. I mean, he can't do anything with sanctions against Iran, because if he, we're already starving him to death. Like, we're doing everything possible, everything you can do to somebody. And so there's no real chance of us having something else less lethal to do. I mean, clearly the choice is to take out the SAM site or not. That's how I see it. You guys here? Hello? There we go. Wait a minute. I'm starting to work out. All right. So I'm starting to see all this stuff now. I don't know how to run my live chat here. I'm learning. So Pat agrees with me. Trump ordered declassification. This is huge if Barr is not another rhino. So declassification, and there was a big argument on my comment section recently when someone asked declassification of what, and my good friend T Money had short patience with the person, like, you should know this already. How come you don't know this? But just so that, I can't assume everyone knows what declassification is. But specifically, we're talking about the declassification, the declassification of the FISA court documents. So the whole Russia investigation, the whole special counsel, all of the investigation by the FBI, it turns out, was all based on a thing called a FISA document, because there's a thing called a FISA court. This is where you can go if you're a Fed and get a warrant against a United States citizen to look at, to spy on them without going through a traditional court where you'd have to present really strong evidence. And it has to do with, basically you do that if you think that person is in league with a foreign government. So it's essentially treason-related kind of anti-government stuff that is handled through the FISA court. And so to declassify those documents would be to show us, the American people, the exact process they used to get the warrants that they used to spy on Trump. And apparently it's all based on what's called the Peepee dossier, or the Steele report, which, if you want to get right down to it, the FISA it's a judicial branch of the federal government. Pat, he's asking what the FISA had the same power. They are the same thing. The FISA is federal government. But at any rate, so the way that works is it's like the poison tree idea, that if all of the investigation comes from a falsified document, a document that was paid for as opposition research by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, right? And it was gathered, so you get the real collusion here. Hillary, what's up, T-Money? Hillary absolutely went straight to, a foreign government, in this case, the British, got this British intel officer to fabricate this dossier, and that was the main thing they used to get the warrant. So anything they might have found, and especially any like obstruction of justice charges, all that's just got to be dropped because of the poison tree concept, that any of the fruit that comes from this poison tree is then also poison. So the poison tree being the FISA document. Now, we've been the Trump defenders have been saying all along that they use this Steele dossier to get their warrants, and therefore none of this stuff is valid. And it shows basically like a bunch of lying on part of the deep state to get these warrants that they used against Trump. And, really the whole thing is, if they release the FISA documents, a lot of people believe that the American people will finally see that Obama used state power to spy on a political opponent, which is absolutely horrid. And then it continued while he was president-elect, and maybe even while he was president. Let's see. Trump's merely a puppet, a distraction. I hear that a lot, Metal Man. But I don't hear anybody giving me any, backing for that. It's just, that's your opinion. That's your hunch, your feeling. And, and I think a lot of people that feel that way about Trump, it's because they've given up on the idea that there could ever be anybody on our side, and that it just, by the very fact that he was allowed to be president, he must be corrupt. And I think that's what a lot of that is based on, where you're like, he's one of them. This is a distraction. It's a horse and pony show. It's a circus. I hear all this stuff coming from that side. But, I don't see any hard evidence that links him in any way. I mean, if you look at Trump, he looks like kind of a upper middle class outsider who worked his way to the top and somehow broke through the ranks to do this. And, those of you out there that helped him, I think you can attest to this, that he seems to be the president of the people. Yeah, he's fast tracking 5G. Okay, so Trump is fast tracking 5G. Is that because Trump is part of it and he knows 5G is bad and he can't wait to get it out there and make all of us sick and is he evil? He's just one of them? Or is he just ignorant? He just doesn't, he's listening to what people tell him is that 5G is new technology and it's going to make our cell phone lives so much better. So, I mean, a lot of the things that people say against Trump can be totally explained away as just ignorance. Maybe he doesn't know, or, I talk about a lot of stuff on my coffee talks I don't necessarily believe, but I hear about, but I don't have any proof for it, And so you can't make decisions based on that kind of stuff. Iran's leaders are all deep state puppets. Well, I think the deep state and Iran are definitely in bed. Well, obviously, or Mueller wouldn't have delivered that yellow cake, right? And all that money. Yeah, his cabinet, another thing, Trump's always had problems with his cabinet because he's fishing in the same pond. Like he's fishing in the swamp, and he keeps pulling out swamp creatures, and he wonders why he's pulling out swamp creatures. I don't know how I feel about 5G. I don't know whether 5G is actually going to make us all sick or what it is. I will tell you this. There's something here in this valley that when I come back here, I get sick. My joints hurt. I blow up like a tick. It seems like my liver's shutting down. And the minute I get across the mountains, I'm all better. And in Texas, I'm a beast. But I come back here and I'm a broke down old man. So is it 5G? Is it chemtrails? None of those things I seriously believe in because I can't find the proof for them. There's no evidence. Just a lot of, conjecture. But there's something going on. There's something making people sick. Is it in the food? Is it in the water? Is it all of the above? I do believe in Agenda 21. Australia rejected 5G. Interesting. I'm more concerned with, we'll just have to wait and see. They won't get 5G on me because they're not going to spend the money to run it all the way out there to my cabin in the woods. Trump is psychological warfare. You know what? I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I don't see the proof. And, his presidency is helping the American people. Here's some little known facts about Trump. Number one, Trump is the only president to ever come into office being in favor of gay marriage as a human right. So he's also the only president to work to pass laws to make the murder of gay people in foreign countries a crime, a criminal act, and against international law. Trump was given an NAACP award as a businessman because he employed small businessmen of color, and so he was given this award. That Donald Trump appeared in rap videos and was loved by the African American community right up until the moment he unexpectedly became president of the United States, and then everyone turned on him. So I don't have a lot of proof that he's an insider. It looks more like he's what I have always called him, an accidental president. Like, they cheat to get their people elected. That's how they do it. They don't just burn all of the ballots and decide this one's going to be president. They have to cheat. So they have to shift the numbers. And they do this by using dead people to vote. They use this by getting the people to vote more than once. They do this by getting illegal aliens to vote, right? Hillary Clinton used the control of superdelegates to win the nomination. So they got all these ways of cheating, right? But they didn't cheat enough because Donald Trump had such a grassroots appeal. So many people voted for him. I knew right up until the election, I knew people as varied as strippers, right, and female impersonators who were going to vote for Trump, right? As well as, Second Amendment people and truthers and people like that, he was on Alex Jones. It seems like he's one of us. He got elected because they couldn't cheat enough. Trump is a businessman, agreed. DARPA is currently building Terminator through Boston Dynamics. That's interesting. Israel invented 5G. That's interesting. Yeah, I think there's pretty much proof that the deep state uses false flags and assassination to control the world. Definitely, as well as economic blackmail. Yeah, there were black people who won The Apprentice. Donald Trump, if you've watched him, people of a certain age. Okay, I've watched Donald Trump come up in the world. Trump is not a racist. Trump's dated black women. Trump has promoted black women. Omarosa springs to mind. He could have picked a better one than her, though. She's kind of a mean old lady. She'd be mad if she knew I called her an old lady. Well, she's like a gripey old woman, She's got issues, Omarosa does. But, he promoted people like her. He's promoted, I think I heard a recent statistic that I believe is true, that Trump's White House has employed more people of color than any other president in history. So it's hard to call him a racist. He was almost an honorary member of the black community before all this. So Trump is Scottish royalty. And you don't care who he's related to as long as he does what is promised. Well, I can trace my family tree back to royalty. Does that make me a bad guy? I'm not recognized. I'm a shirt tail relative, but the bottom line is I'm mostly English, and Earl is a family name. Do I believe there's an internet shutoff switch? I can't see how there could be. And here's why. The internet was created for the purpose of offering post-apocalyptic communication, and it was promoted by and invented by United States Department of Defense. And so, by its very nature, it was designed to keep functioning after a nuclear attack. A nuclear. Quit making. Here's another thing. Y'all quit making fun of my Texas accent. Down in Texas, we say clear, clear, and we say nuclear. There's like a U sound after the C sound in Texas talk. So when we say nuclear, that's just the way how we pronounce it. We're not stupid. We have a drawl, y'all. But man, I lost my train of thought. That's the thing about going live. You lose your train of thought. Because I'm trying to read this over here and all this. The internet shutdown. There we go. That's what we're talking about. I don't think that there's any way to flip a switch on the internet because by nature, the internet exists on everyone's computer. So everyone that has a server. I'll give you an example. I used to be a contractor for Electronic Data System, Ross Perot's company in Plano, Texas. And I was escorted down there by my boss to look at the servers, and we opened up this very dark basement room, and he was telling me all along the way how it was bomb proof, how it had climate control, that even if the building was bombed and caught on fire, that room would still stay cold, right? And he walked through and he's like, see this section of computers, and they were all like mainframes in steel cases, and he's like, that one's Coke, that one's Pepsi. And you walk down here, like, this one's, this company, that one's Mobil Oil, this one's that. So all of these websites that we look at are housed in these bomb shelters. And now, an EMP would just take everything down because you wouldn't be able to access something that might still be there. Short of an EMP, I don't think there's any way they can rig the internet to shut down unless they put in a backdoor switch from the get-go. But at the same time, how would they do that when there's so many banks, so many basements with so many servers? I mean, the best you can do is knock holes in the internet. So you lost. Wendy said they lost power in Victoria, Canada, I guess. Joe Rogan interview with Bob Lazar. Wait, Bob Lazar was on Joe Rogan? What? I never saw that. I'm looking at that as soon as this is over. In Houston, once a Middle Eastern clerk followed you around accusing you of stealing. I've been followed around by clerks of all colors. It's because you got shifty eyes. Yeah, I definitely agree that the Dems were just pretending to care about minorities. Think about this. The Democratic Party is the party of the South. They are the party of, when I say that, I mean the Confederacy. The Confederacy was all Democrats. The people that freed the slaves were the Republicans, and somehow they managed to flip that in the 60s and make the Democrats the party of the African Americans. But really, it was all a psyop. It was all a trick. They tricked them into voting. It's easy to look at LBJ. I mean, he pretty much admits it. Like this stuff is well-known documentation that that LBJ had the intention of giving black voters just enough to make them think that the Democrats were on their side so they could continue to control the population and keep them down. The Democrats are not and have never been the friends of the African American community, I promise you. And I should know, and probably some people will unsubscribe when I tell you that I'm 3% Congolese. That's what my DNA says. That's where I got this nose, honestly. Did Rogan ask any stupid questions? I don't know. Rogan, I have mixed feelings about Rogan. Yeah, read Heinrich's How to Take Back the Second Amendment. Riker dropped a link in there. I really like Heinrich. But he's pretty radical. I think that he might be one of those guys they come for because he's openly talking about how we're in it. Yeah, LBJ did have a different black name for black people back then. Everybody did, unfortunately. I hate that word. How close am I to 100% off-grid homesteading? Well, I would say I was living 100% off-grid homesteading for 2 months. From April, all of April and May, I was 100% off-grid, except I was buying water. But that's just because I didn't want to filter pond water. or capture rainwater. That's what I'm going to be doing. I mean, if we're talking about the Texas Homestead Project, that's some things I've decided that I'm going to do a combination of a shallow well, hand dug shallow well, and rainwater catchment, so I don't have to deal with the county and all of the malarkey that goes with it. Am I playing this weekend? Yes, I have a private wedding that I'm playing, I believe, on Saturday. I need to check and make sure it's not tonight. But I was waiting for Charm to get woke up before I called her. But I don't know whether I can live stream it. It may be too far out in the country. A lot of people get married out in barns and stuff and old churches out in the country. Yeah, they used JFK to switch the black voters. I don't know. I think it was the Civil Rights Act that was put through, I believe, by LBJ. When am I going back to Texas? Probably around the 4th of July, somewhere at the end of the month here. I'm getting close. The 40s through the 60s were the era of growing authoritarian leftist control. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was that whole Red Scare. Yeah, I would definitely agree that if you live in California or Oregon, you should be making your move. A big part of why why my situation here is changing is that I want to go and other people in my family do not. They want to stay here, so they'll get whatever fate comes their way if they stay in Oregon. We're talking about Rogan. He talks about the Illuminati stuff, but never dives deep. I don't know. I think Rogan might be one of those people that he's like us, but he's so afraid of the Illuminati that he dances around it for fear that they will take away his toys and or hurt him. I think Joe Rogan is, for as tough a guy as he is in the ring, he doesn't want to deal with the Illuminati, so he doesn't delve too deeply in them, where I already threatened to strangle one of their representatives when they came to me with the Crossroads deal, so I was already on their bad side. Doesn't Oregon governor want to arrest Republicans? Well, I haven't heard that one. I mean, you know, she's as leftist and as progressive as you can get. She's not good for this state, that's for sure. And she's dirty as can be, I promise you. You know, she absolutely used her governorship to get reelected. Her position as governor to campaign with. And that's campaign finance reform violations. The proper international United States Marine Corps rucksack. Well, I guess it would be depending on what era, since that device has changed down through time, and what is the rucksack now is not the rucksack the old Marine grew up with. I don't think Rogan's a leftist. I think Rogan, like so many of my generation, and I was really for a lot of my life, I'm a centrist. It's just like he's probably more left of center like Tim Pool. You like the story about the men in black visiting the old Marine? Well, we've always been on their radar. The government, you know, my dad said the government's going to watch him, would watch him his entire life and watch me the rest of my life for the things that he did for them because he held some of their secrets. Jones, wait, it's going so fast. Well, I just, you know, as far as the Oregon thing is going, a lot of people here are talking about this. I guess there's some kind of scandal I'm unaware of. I haven't been keeping up since I went to Texas and made my move to Texas. That's where I'm going, you know, it's on. But, so I haven't been following the Oregon thing, but, you know, if the Democrats want to start arresting Republican lawmakers here on some BS, then I expect pickup trucks with rifles in the window to come pouring over the mountains from eastern Oregon. I saw that on November 4. They flooded over across the mountains just in case somebody tried to take the Capitol. And the city was overran. Salem was overran with cowboy hats and rifles in the windows and four-wheel drive trucks that just screamed, well, all with Oregon plates. So then boys over in eastern Oregon aren't going to sit by while Kate Brown turns this into some kind of fascist regime, that it'll just be on. I've always thought that the Civil War is going to start in Oregon or in California, but because the Northern Californians have the same kind of attitude that the Eastern Oregonians do. I think Washington's a lost cause. There's just not enough people up there because the left has control of most of the Native American tribes in Washington, so they got them voting Democratic a lot. And so but Oregon is where the first shots are going to be fired. I'm sure of it, and it's a big reason why I feel like God has almost forced me to go back to Texas. And unfortunately, I'm sad because there's two of the three primary women in my life. My daughter and my baby mama are staying here. They're choosing Oregon over me, and looks like my mom is actually going to go back to Texas, and my son. So we're getting out. We're getting out. I'm not too concerned about Antifa in Oregon as much as I'm concerned with what happens when Antifa is encouraged to do whatever they want and the police are forced to stand down. Then you could have a real purge kind of activity. I've always said there's going to be a purge. It's going to start in Oregon. A purge by the Antifa against older Americans mainly. Most of the conservatives in Oregon are over 50. Will I write a Civil War-esque letter to my family before I embark? Nope, sorry, I'm just too upset. If you're not following me, then you're on your own. That's just how I feel about it. I'm old-fashioned. I'm the head of the household. I've been leading this family through hell and high water since before these kids were born. And if you want to rebel against me, then you get whatever come to you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You have the opportunity to go now. If they come running along behind at some point with their tail between their legs asking for help, I will help them. I will not turn my back to them. But I'm not going to stay here in this area and defend them from something that clearly God's trying to get us away from. Muslims are the real threat. I don't my mom, who doesn't know the politics of all this, my 85-year-old mother, she constantly, whenever she sees Antifa, she calls them ISIS because they look the same. And actually, Antifa and ISIS have been caught training together in the Middle East. There's pictures of Antifa and ISIS flag flying side by side. So they are one and the same. Yeah, Lavoy Finicum was gunned down. That was awful. All I can say is I probably would not try to have run the blockade. You know what I mean? I would have either gave up and not tried to run past the blockade. Not saying that Finicum was responsible for his death, but it could possibly been avoided, or at least had they killed him, it would have been more damning against the feds that pulled the trigger. But I find it interesting that what was a state police spot had two high-powered riflemen, gunmen that worked for the feds on each side of that road. That was their plan. If someone tried to run it, was they were just going to kill him. And Finicum got shot. It was awful. I was here when that happened. Had I not been working very hard to support an entire family at that moment and not been able to get away from work, I thought about going over there in the heat of the standoff. So I guess when I talk, it's impossible for me to read. So it takes me a minute to kind of watch and see what you guys are talking about so I can jump in here. Well, it was really interesting. Trump recently said something about 9/11. He said he thinks he knows who's responsible for 9/11. But he wouldn't say who. So I don't know. Sage, how would you react if theories of an internment camp in Walmarts were true? I don't know. If in this Civil War, I'm going to more or less be a voice. In my little short-lived series that I never elaborated on, I think I did 1 or 2 videos on it, post-apocalyptic tale. And in that, I painted myself as a voice of the resistance or a person who broadcasts, because I'm just too old to, I believe if you're going to lead men, you should lead from the front. And I'm just a little too old to stand in front of an army. So if this stuff goes to war, I'm probably going to be a voice in the wilderness. I think that's my calling. That's what I consider myself. Like Elijah, a voice crying in the wilderness. Like John the Baptist, a voice crying in the wilderness. Would they have enough people to round up people and take them to the Walmart camps? No. The Walmart camps, the FEMA camps, are not for people who resist. People who resist will be met with deadly force. Just so that you know that. They're not going to come and point a gun at you and say, come to the FEMA camp. The situation is going to be so bad, whatever the situation is, that they're going to open the FEMA camp, and all of the scared sheep will run willingly into slaughter, run willingly to the FEMA camps. They'll be lined up outside begging to be let into the FEMA camps. And people like me who wrote a song, I Ain't Going to the FEMA Camp, right, will have to be dealt with in a more barbaric way and up close and personal, but not after that they've been given ample opportunity to voluntarily show up for internment. It's those that refuse to show up that will that they'll have to eliminate. My phone is blocking this. Okay. You're gonna go out in the country, you know, out in the Blazing Blazer. Well, you know what? Because it's you, Blazing. Well, welcome, Blazing. I haven't heard from you in a while, I think. But, you know, this is a guy who hunts deer with a buck knife in Alaska, unless I'm getting my people straightened out. Blazing, you're from Alaska, right? But anyway, so, you know, yeah, he could probably go out in the bush in a end of the world scenario and do just fine. But most people who think I'm going to go out in the country do not, or go out in the woods, don't understand how hard it is to survive in the woods. That, you know, especially these Cascade Mountains in the Pacific Northwest, all the way up through British Columbia and Alaska. You know, city hunters go out there with you know, a plan and tell people where they're going, and they go well equipped, and you'll find them 3 days later humped up next to a tree, dead as a doornail. The wilderness is unforgiving, and if you do not have the skills now, you will not have the skills when the crap hits the fan. And to think that you can be a city dweller and just go, hey, I'm going to go out in the woods and build a camp. That's not going to work out well for you. If the mountain don't get you, then the mountain men will, and that's how that works. So you got to have the skills ahead of time. It's another reason why I'm getting out of here. For me, it's easier for me to survive on a small piece of land in rural Texas than it is to try to survive in the wilderness with the cities and the best growing areas and the agriculture areas controlled by the leftists. If the crap hits the fan, and for me, the crap hitting the fan is civil war or foreign invasion or EMP. In any of those situations, I do not want to be here. I want to be someplace where I can basically close myself off from the world and take care of myself, and I can do that in north central Texas. This one guy, I'm just going to start calling you Extra. Your name is so long. He says he'd rather lose his life to a bear or a wolf than a bullet. I don't know. Being eaten alive? Are you sure about that? If I had the choice between getting eaten alive by a bear, well, I'm sorry. I'm going to be like Anthony Hopkins. I'm going to kill the bear. I'm going to kill the bear. That's my attitude. Bear ain't getting me. Yeah, I think Blazing is going to be all right in the woods. There are things unknown to the animal kingdom in Alaska. Okay, Blazing, you have to say more than that. That was... When do I think it's coming? When do I think the war is coming? Man, honestly, I'm on the edge of my seat. I do know this. I feel confident that as long as I'm in Oregon, it's not going to happen. I really feel, well, the Bible says that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. In other words, God moves you where he wants you to be, especially if you're listening. And so as long as I'm here, I don't think he wants me to be here. Like, he wouldn't be moving me like this. It seems supernatural. The desire and resolve of the women in my family to just say no to me is something I've never experienced before. It's just so, it's almost supernatural. It's almost demonic in nature. I won't lie. Yeah, if the Clintons got back in the White House, that would have gone down. That would have gone down. It's going to go down if they come for the guns, but it may go down sooner because we may be looking at an EMP. That's the thing that scares me most. Let's talk about Iran again, because Iran might be used as an opportunity to deal with the right and the gun owners in America. So it would be totally like the deep state to take down the power grid or EMP the United States and blame it on Iran, or just start crud with Iran when they know that Iran's plan A is to EMP America. And then in the chaos around an EMP or a grid down situation, that's when That's when my friend, her scenario, my MK Ultra trainer friend scenario comes into play. That's when the government just comes in and, or non-official members of the deep state, the men in the black tactical outfits with the black helicopters and the black SUVs just take over everything in the chaos. Yeah, I think that they are trying to draw us into a war with Iran, and I think it's because Iran is they're gonna EMP us. I mean, you guys need to get ready to live without electricity and to produce your own food or be able to have a network of barter. Yeah, every day could be the day it happens. I mean, you just need to become an expert in taking care of yourself. Here's the thing about all of this. The only reason that we even have to be preppers is because we, as a generation, starting with the greatest generation, I think they might have been the last ones that were truly prepared for anything. But the children of the greatest generation, the baby boomers and younger, we have all abdicated our responsibilities in taking care of ourselves. In other words, for the history of the United States and all of the world, through human history, it's always been each individual's responsibility to provide for themselves, to be able to feed themselves in good times and bad. And, we stopped doing this in a tangible way and started using jobs and money and credit and, to take care of ourselves. And so in doing so, we have become, yeah, the van is EMP proof. Well, resistant. It's an old one. It doesn't have any electronics. But but yeah, the past generations, they could take an EMP, no big deal because they had a more organic way of taking care of themselves. And now we're all interdependent on the system. And, it's really, it's just going back to reclaim your situation, your obligation to take care of yourself. Reclaim that, be responsible for it. That's what's behind my move to Texas. I want to go someplace, 8 acres of land is enough to sustain me. And I intend to make it sustainable for me. And I think it's definitely in the heart of friendly country. So they got to get through a lot of Texans before they get to me, deep in the heart of Texas. So I feel better there. I feel better because I'm surrounded by like-minded people. There in West Texas, just west of Weatherford, near Mingus, is one of Texas's only 1,000-yard privately owned rifle ranges. The man that founded that was a Royal Marine in the British Special Forces. He was in the Special Boat Services, which is kind of like the Navy SEALs, and he was a helicopter sniper pilot. And he worked for the government, and when he got out of that, he became a mercenary, and he worked the Blood Diamond Wars in Africa, and he made a large sum of money doing that business there, that dirty business. And he decided to purchase land in Texas because he said, and I quote, "I could have lived anywhere, mate. I could have bought land on any of the continents of the world. And I chose the United States. And specifically, I chose Texas. And even more specifically, I chose this section of Texas because it is the last free place on earth." So I trust that guy's opinion. So I'm going to live over there in the same neighborhood. Yeah, but does Gen X know how to take care of itself? I mean, at least Gen Xers, at least, maybe many of them know how to camp, at least. The old men taught us how to camp. But most Gen Xers aren't like me. I am the oldest of the Gen Xers, or the youngest of the baby boomers, depending on how you look at it. But, my friends didn't know how to. I had a kid come to our house, and we had crappie, fried crappie, wild fish for dinner. And this kid never seen a wild fish. He didn't know how to eat a fish. He grew up on hamburgers and chicken nuggets. And so I watched him eat it like a cartoon cat would eat a fish, or like you'd seen in cartoons. He nibbled off the fins and the tail, and he left all the meat on the plate. And all he did was eat the fins and tails because I guess he'd seen that in a cartoon. So they don't even teach their kids how to eat food from the natural source. Yeah, Rodney Howard is a preacher from South Africa. You're talking about land taxes? I don't, it doesn't bother me so much in Texas because I know specifically what the land taxes are being used for. More than half of them go for the local independent school district. And the local independent school district, uses those funds directly. And so when you're not paying your property taxes, you're not paying for kids to get education. So I don't mind Texas property taxes, although they've been going up for no reason because they're tapping into them for more and more for other reasons. So but in places like Oregon where, I mean, they're taxing you from every direction. What are you saying, Metal Man? There's a lot of stuff going on in here. I'm trying to follow you. I don't know what information you're even talking about, Metal Man. You're talking about Trump being one of them? I don't know. You didn't show me the proof. So anybody else here? Sometimes the chat just disappears. There we go. My thoughts on Europe, other than they're being invaded intentionally by third world countries and turned into Islamic caliphates. That's what's happening to Europe. Mr. Lopez, I am 51. Oregon, the taxes have fees and the fees have taxes. I agree. I totally agree. He was trying to tell us something. I guess because when I pick a topic and I start talking, I can't read and talk at the same time. I'm not that gifted. Yeah, I used to dream about going to Europe too. Baby boomers can skin and cook a fish. You know, the older people are, the more you have those skills, and the young people don't even know how to catch a fish, much less clean it. Yeah, it could be the Texas taxes are going up because everybody's moving there. I don't know. I know the property values are going through the roof. Thank goodness I didn't sell all of my land. Yes, Hungary has rejected the EU and globalism. Hungary is the home state, or the home country, rather, of George Soros. That's where he's from. So they know what he's doing and what he's up to, and they are at the cutting edge of the fight against globalism. And my song, George Soros is a Vampire, was a minor hit in Hungary. And I heard back that it was getting a lot of play on the radio and as well as the internet websites. Yeah, I can play piano, but you know what? I can't talk and play piano. Some guys I've seen, they can just be playing the piano and have a conversation. But the minute I start talking, I can't play music anymore. Isn't that weird? You learned to gut a trout when you were 6. Excellent. But, you know, a lot of people wouldn't know how to catch one, much less gut it. And that's just the sad state of affairs we live in. That's why they say if there is an EMP, 90% of Americans will perish. 90%. That means 90% of the people out there, if you just cut off their electricity, they would just die. How does that work? I don't understand. We're running out of time to teach the old ways, you know? And you know what? Here's the thing. This is the one reason they're going to get away with this massive die-off with this 90% death from the EMP is that when you have that, I'm live streaming, son. When you have that, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Oh, the destruction of the family. When fathers stopped teaching sons and daughters, when grandpas stopped taking their grandkids fishing, when the family broke down, then the teaching of the old ways and the old skills went with it. And that is why that's why one of the reasons they did it, to not just weaken the family unit, but also to make sure that the survival skills weren't being passed down. Some millennials are going to make it. I mean, you know what the division between millennials typically is? The question with millennials, you know, the dividing point between millennials, like my son, are different than other millennials. And the big dividing line is the difference between millennials who had fathers and grandfathers and millennials who didn't have fathers and grandfathers. You know, that there's those millennials that were raised by women or raised in daycare centers, or were raised without positive male influence, that these are the ones that typically have so many issues in what we would call, the soy boy epidemic. You were born in the mid 80s, so you fall in Gen X? Barely. Barely. I guess so. My son's one of the oldest of the millennials. Yeah, you know why you can grow a garden, Sir Johnson? Because we grew up growing in gardens as our houses. You know, you learned that from the old men and the old ladies. 81 is the divide between Gen X and millennial, huh? Interesting. I hadn't heard where they divide that exactly. Yeah, 90% of your friends are not prepared. Yeah, gosh, I wonder how prepared I am. And I've been doing this for decades. You know, as I prepare to leave all of my preps behind and start from scratch in Texas, I just realized how long I've been doing this. That some of these preps go back to the 90s. You had blackouts, you know, and that's the thing. Short-term blackouts, you don't really run into a problem until you get several days in, when the food runs dry because you can't get trucks in with, you know, because there's no gasoline being pumped. You know, when that kind of stuff starts to happen in a blackout scenario is when you get problems, when medicine dries up, you know, when water can't be pumped or purified. On a simpler solar backup system. Okay, so I just have to recommend what I did because it worked so well that I lived off-grid for 2 months producing my own electricity. Now, I wasn't trying to run a refrigerator, freezer, or air conditioner. It was mainly just powering lights and communication devices. But I had two of those solar power systems you get from Harbor Freight, the Thunder or something. You know, it's a 100-watt system. I had two of those, so I had 200 watts or 8 25-watt panels running to two charge controllers that were charging 3 deep cycle batteries. And unless I was dealing with cloudy days, I always had electricity, as long as I kind of rationed it. Like, you just can't let the TV run all day or something. You'll use more than you collect. So I really like those. They've worked really good for me, and they seem really durable and easy to operate. So I do like the Thunder. That's just the cheapest stuff you can get away with, and I think it would work really good with some simple deep cycle batteries. So that was a question for you. How can I tell how long I've been on here? Oh, 56 minutes. Time flies. I love talking to y'all. So somebody said they build a device that creates free power, some kind of special device. Be careful, or the men in black will come collect it. Don't show it to anybody. Don't have demonstrations in the backyard. Mentally prepped is a big part of it. Mindset. If you look into any wilderness survival course, one of the very first things they'll talk about is mindset. You know, I keep going back to that Anthony Hopkins you know, movie about the bear. You know, I can't remember what it's called, but they're being stalked by a bear in the wilderness, and his mindset is, I'm not going to be killed by a bear in the wilderness. It's just not going to happen. And in it, he talks about how people die of shame when they're lost in the wilderness, because all they can do is just foment and grieve over the mistakes they made and the situation and how bad it is, instead of trying to think their way out of it. So mindset is everything. When you learn martial arts, you learn that the guy that goes into it expecting to overcome his enemy is the guy that typically does. More prepping videos. I'm going to do more prepping videos. I'm going to do more fighting videos, more edge weapon videos, and some shooting videos when I get back to Texas for sure. You never answer any of my questions? Well, ask me one, Marlene. I'm watching now. Marlene Hager is one of my favorite folks. I pray for you. The Edge, 1997. Yeah, that's the movie I keep referencing. Stardust Ranch. I'm not familiar with what's the Stardust Ranch, Blazin. Fake an alien invasion. Do I think they'll fake an alien invasion? That's a good question. I think they have the technology to do it. Would it be fake, or would it be an actual invasion? I think they're talking to aliens/demons. I think that's what's wrong with our world. That's why it's changed so much. It's where all this technology is coming from. I'm not kidding when I say my cell phone is alien technology. I think they're getting this stuff from demons. It's like they're getting like Prometheus giving us fire. You know, that's what's happening right now, and it's been happening. That's a coffee talk I believe in. It's not even a coffee talk. It's just, to me, it's a fact that there's something going on. We're getting technology from someplace alien. Am I ever going to preach again in a church somewhere? I don't know that I will. I don't know that I will, because I don't know. I don't want to start indicting the concept of church. but it's not what it used to be, and people are off track in churches, 99.9% of them. And so, Nazi demonic interfaces. I don't know what that is. Repeat the damn question. Palestinian cowboy is always a little edgy. That guy's a little on edge. Booker L. mentioned about new reading program. The word children is... I don't know what that was talking about. It's going by so fast. Start my own church. Welcome to the Sage Wanderer Church. That's kind of what this is. You know, I just don't preach about sin. I preach about love and power through the Holy Spirit. I do that a lot. Marlene, what was your question? I keep missing it. I only see, put a big orange emoji on the question. I'm just, you know, my dad passed away blind, and my mom is going deaf. And so I kind of look at that and go, I'm afraid that may be my old age plight. I may end up blind and deaf, but my vision is so bad, and this tiny screen is not helping. Have I ever had a demonic or spiritual experience? What was it, and how did it make me feel? Well, you need to know that I wrote a song called Exorcist from Texas, that I was an active devil fighter for about 4 or 5 years and did many exorcisms. I have had many discussions. Marlene thinks we're all illegals in Texas. Marlene, why am I missing your, like, she's saying stuff, but I only see it when she gets mad that I don't answer, and I don't see the question. I'm as frustrated as you are, Marlene. Try again. I can scroll back. I'm afraid if I scroll back, I'll get lost. Have you seen illegals in Texas? Well, honestly, there's way more illegal, fresh across the river, Mexican and South American illegal aliens in Oregon than there ever were that I ever met in Texas. Most of the Hispanics in Texas are like second, third, fourth, fifth generation Americans. You know, one of my best friends and music people that I collaborated with musically, David Ruiz. His mom and dad came over illegally, but they got citizenship in the 1985 amnesty. And so he could speak Spanish, but he had to think about it. You know, he only spoke Spanish to his mom and dad, and, you know, he served in the United States Army. And so that's what most of the Texans are that I run across to. The people in Texas that seem foreign to me are not the Hispanics, because most of them have Southern accents, to tell you the truth, the ones that I run across in North Texas anyway. And what you end up running into is a lot of Somalis and, you know, people from India and Sikhs and stuff like that. There's just a lot of Muslims and Sikhs and Indians in North Central Texas. And I imagine some of them are yeah, I did face off with witches. I have the scars to prove it. I mean, literally, I have some scars on my back. She's talking about illegals in Texas. Well, what's concerning me is the influx of the Congolese, which I am 3% Congolese. But the Congolese are kind of a backwards nation of Africans who, because they think that Ebola is witchcraft, they're not submitting to some of the tests and things, and they're escaping out of their country to get away from the Ebola outbreak. And many of them are finding their way into San Antonio, Texas. But what I understand is that the Congolese coming into Texas are just getting on buses and going mainly to Portland, Maine. That they're going to where there are some Congolese refugees, and they're starting to collect together in certain places, and they're not really staying in Texas, so they're just passing through. But, you know, Portland, Maine has said, stop sending the Congolese up here. We have too many. We can't take care of them. I'm part Congolese, yes, 3%, according to Ancestry.com. It explains a lot about me. What's up, Linda? Good to see you. Well, okay, so Ebola is probably going to be the big one that destroys the world. If we're going to get destroyed in a plague, it's Ebola. And the only reason that Ebola hasn't overcome the earth is because the people on the ground, at ground zero on these outbreaks, are doing everything they can to contain it. And that's one of the reasons why the Congolese are such a pain to a lot of people right now, because they're not complying. They're just escaping. They're surviving. Congolese are good at surviving. What can we expect in the next 2 years? Okay, so we're going to continue to see the vitriol get more and more advanced. The anger, the hatred, the battles on the street are all going to just intensify towards the 2020 election, where I think Trump will be reelected in a landslide, or we will break out in civil war right around the election. It could be when he gets reelected is when the shooting starts to happen. I just really think we're within 2 years we're going to civil war. I just don't see how this doesn't escalate. It's got all the earmarkings of civil war. If you study the first United States Civil War, then you know that everything we're doing is a repeat of history as far as the slow escalation towards the eventual shooting. You all should decide whether you're combatants or refugees at this point. Coke or Pepsi? Definitely Coke. Pepsi has fetus stuff in it, I think. There's the thing about fetal tissue being in certain Pepsi products. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just something I saw on the internet. Don't. Enough to where I didn't like Pepsi anyway. Sam Walton run internment camps for Japanese in World War II? I've never heard that. Is there a link? Is that who said that? I never heard that Sam Walton had anything to do with internment camps in World War II. What's the Congolese? They're Africans from the Congo. You think when Trump wins again, pockets of Christians, hatred against Christians will spike, and there'll be battles in purple states. I think the battles will be in the blue states. I think the blue states will decide that none of us are welcome there. This is why I'm leaving a blue state, because I don't think it's going to happen in purple states like Colorado or Florida. It's going to happen in solid blue states first, because they're going to purge their midst of the people who are trying to fight them so they can have total control of their blue states. If civil war breaks out, what does that mean for other superpowers around the world? So if America falls into a civil war, I feel very certain. Wait, okay, Marlene, I don't want to ignore her. Sam Walton in internment camps, he signed a contract with the government. I don't know. I'll have to research that, Marlene. Thanks for that tip. I had not heard that one. I may have to do a coffee talk on that one. Coffee talk on Sam Walton in internment camps. That's one I should have done a long time ago. The FEMA camp on... Okay, we were talking about something else. Oh, yeah, what would other countries do if America fell into civil war? I've always said that I think China in particular would take that opportunity to just go ahead and reclaim Taiwan. They would probably put the Tibetans in their place. They would definitely make sure all those peripheral islands around the Philippines were occupied, and they might invade the Philippines while we're distracted. They might also send aid to the West Coast to back up Antifa and other grassroots anti-government or whatever left-wing forces that might be compiling on the West. They might get some help. There, you could see Chinese troops in America. It could happen. They could intervene in our civil war. And the UN could show up, but honestly, the UN is such a small force that they're really insufficient in even stopping anything, much less an American civil war. Do I think people are too lazy for civil war? Well, it only takes about 3% to overthrow the government. I mean, the rest, the other 97% can be lazy, but what it's going to end up happening is they'll become refugees. They'll be running for their lives. Okay, so Jeff says he thinks World War II will start World War III between Pakistan and India. I think it could be part of it. That might be part of what's going on. I think Iran and North Korea are at the big center of what's about to happen. We're about to get crossways with Russia. Would Russia back Texas in a civil war? Okay, so this goes back to one of my coffee talks on John Titor. John Titor was a supposed time traveler who came back in the 80s, and he left us with a blueprint towards future civil war in America. And in that scenario that he told all those years ago, the Russians took the opportunity to bomb the cities. And in doing so, they destroyed the left, and all that was left was the right. And then Russia came in to help all of the survivors of the nuclear attack. And And that is how Russia intervened in the American Civil War, according to John Titor, supposed time traveler. Don't. What's up, Stacy? Good to see you. Yeah, China and India are on the verge as well. Yeah, there's a lot that the Cameroon, is that, am I saying that? Or no, oh, what's that's named after fabric? You know what I'm talking about, that part of the world. Kashmir? Yeah, there you go. If Trump gets out of war with Iran, he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for what he's done for our economy. I don't know if they give him out for that. He saved a lot of people from the poorhouse. Wait, did I hear the Congolese immigrants in San Antonio? Yes, we were just talking about the Congolese in San Antonio, but they're moving on to Portland, Maine, looks like. Trump explains why he called off the strikes. I'm in no hurry. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning of the stream, where I talked about how I thought he was being a really noble and well and thinking president. Because instead of just listening to the generals, he went, is it just to kill 150 people over an $180 million aircraft? And I don't see how in any world it's justified to murder 150 people in an act of war over $180 million military aircraft that we were putting in harm's way anyhow. Although something needs to be done. We don't need to be, blowing up their stuff over it. Maybe hit the SAM site. That's what I was always thinking. Take out the missiles that took it out. Yes, the first Congolese did arrive as slaves. They were part of the first round of slaves to come in, and that's why a lot of people have Congolese. It comes from having, as my black musician friends used to say, they said, Sage, boy, you do not play like a white man, and somewhere you got a brother in your woodshed, in your family tree someplace. And so sure enough, when I did the DNA, they were right. I'm a funky man. Yeah, that's the big question right now. Was the drone in international airspace, or was the drone over Iranian airspace? And this is a classic case of the he said, she said, red light screaming match. It's just a matter of who you believe. And since I don't know how I feel about this situation, I'm gonna trust Trump on this one. I think he made the right decision. Well, okay, so 150 people die all the time in Afghanistan and Iraq. Really? Well, he's also the president that's got us out of there. It's why I supported him, because I want us out of Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to stop all of that imperialistic behavior and start taking care of our people on this continent. Something about, do I think American enemies will attack the U.S., believing many Americans will think it's a false flag and further divide the U.S.? I don't know, man. That's some 4D chess, maybe. Possibly. There's no such thing as 4D, but I get it. I mean, you get what I'm saying. It could be, there could be some false flag stuff going on with it. I'm not ruling that out. I'm just saying that, the Iranians agree they shot down one of our airplanes. It just happened to be an unarmed drone. Demons equal Nephilim. Probably so. I think demons may be the fallen angels, whereas the Nephilim are the offspring of humans and demons. That's what happens when you conjoin with a succubus or something. Stacy Payne, I hate war. War is hell. I wish we never, ever had any war ever again. But that's a hard one to pull off. What about North Korea? I think maybe we bought them already. I think we already have a deal with them. They're just working out the details. I think we've just paid them off like we've done so many other times in the past. All right, Clint Lacey, I'll let you have that plug. Shameless plug for his book on false flags. You can get that at foothillsmedia.net. There you go, Clint. Everybody go by and pick up his book. Any thoughts on the red-haired giants from Pakistan and Nevada? I was actually thinking about compiling a video about the red-headed giants found in America in the mounds, and that the Smithsonian came in and supposedly took all of these skeletons of red-haired giants. Native Americans have stories of fighting in wars against red-headed giants. Red-headed giant mummies have been found in Asia, and What I really think is these red-headed giants are the men of renown. They are the offspring of the Nephilim. They are somehow survivors of the flood, and that they did exist here, and they're remnants of a previous civilization that may have ruled for thousands and thousands of years. The mound builders, the serpent worshippers, as it were. And I think that the big question is why did the Smithsonian cover this up? Why are archaeologists covering up the truth about America's past? I mean, sorry, the history of the world, okay? Why are they trying to control that narrative? What do they gain from covering up the existence of red-haired giants? Why don't they want to adjust the prehistoric ideology? Is it just because they're trying to protect the concept of evolution, and they don't want to talk about potentially, outside alien interference in the human story? Are they afraid it will prove the Bible? I do not know why the Smithsonian covered up the red-haired giants and all of these big bones, but it's clear that they did. There can't be that much fake news that was going around in the 1890s, because that's when they started showing pictures and reports of these archaeological finds that are then covered up by the Smithsonian. What's Canada going to do in a civil war? They're going to set it out. They're going to deal with refugees. That most of the people we talked about. Oh, I got to plug in. My battery's low. Hang on. I'm going to lose the feed. All right. I think I'm in. Or not. Go in there. Ah! All right. Disaster aborted. Or avoided, rather. Gosh, what were we talking about? Where's my feed here? So, let me back up here. Everyone, the South Pole thing, Antarctica. Yeah, I think there's proof down there. Oh, and we were talking about Canada, too. What would Canada do in a civil war? I think that they're just going to process the refugees. The 90% of people that are too lazy to engage in it are going to run away to Canada, and they're going to have to deal with an influx of American refugees. And that's what they'll mainly do. They'll sit out the war for fear that they could experience border friction. So, yeah, that's what I think will happen. They'll sit it out. So Road Viking says that maybe they did I'm probably going to lose the stream, guys, because I'm plugged in. Oh, wait a minute. I'm plugged into the laptop and it's not on. Hang on. I don't want to lose the stream. It keeps telling me my battery's low. Yeah, I just don't see where Canada benefits from getting involved in an American Civil War. It could just bleed over and become a regional conflict. They know that. I think it would be much better for them to stay out of it, and I think that's probably what they would do. Any thoughts on the Clinton video? I don't know. I tell you, I posted up today a Jamie Deluxe video where he just goes over the Clinton body count. And so, I mean, yeah, if I told my son today, I was like, that is the reason why God invented hell. Like, there's got to be a hell. There must be a hell for people like, the Clintons, who seems to have gotten away with so much. But, yeah, it seems like they're going to continue to get away with it. I don't know. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. And, it just seems like there's so much protecting the Clintons from everything. From everything from the Lolita Express to the Whitewater thing to what happened in Haiti, the Clinton Foundation. It's just... Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jamie Deluxe and what he's doing, and I think he's doing it in a really logical way. My only beef with him is that when he reads, he misreads words often, and I just wish he'd slow down and read the right word. Yeah, the music business, the entertainment industry it's just run on sexual predators. It's run by sexual predators. Sexual currency is the money of the realm of the music business and and Hollywood. It's just so obvious. It's so corrupt. That's why I just don't ever try to watch it again. I just don't pay attention anymore. I never buy it. I may see it, but I don't buy it. I monitor it without buying it. All right, it's looking like I may lose the stream here because I'm using battery faster than the charger can make up for it. Timeline changes. Are we talking about the Mandela effect? Don't. Is that what you're referring to, Debbie? Yeah, I'm trying to cover everything. I think I may start doing this more and more because there's so much to talk about. It's hard to like focus down and sit down on a single topic when it's just like a million things going on at once. You think I've switched time? Do I think I switch timelines? I do. I've said this before. I kind of believe in the Mandela effect because it seems to me around 2012, 2011, the world suddenly changed. Everybody's